Good evening. I grew up in South Africa. That's where I still live. I enjoy it. Grew up there during a time known as apartheid. For those who don't know, apartheid was a law in our country that made it illegal for black and white people to interact with one another. You know, this was against the law. And so this world was awkward for me growing up because I grew up in a mixed family. Well, with me being the mixed one in the family. My mother's a black woman, Xhosa woman, born in South Africa. That's one of the languages with the clicks, Xhosa. So a black woman, and then my father's Swiss. But they didn't care, you know, they were mavericks, fighting the system. My mom was arrested for being with my dad. She would get fined, she would get thrown into prison for the weekend, but still, she'd come back and she's like, woo, I don't care. Woo, come tell me who to love. I want a white man, woo. Crazy, my mom, it was crazy, you know. And my dad was also like, well, you know how the Swiss love chocolate, so he was in there, you know.
This is the Black Curriculum, and we're back with another one. Now, you may have seen him from his previous stand-up, or you might have seen him hosting The Daily Show. Now, here's the kicker. What you might not have known about Trevor Noah is that he was born a crime. No, he was not born a criminal. He was not born to be wild. He was not born by the river. Shout out to Sam Cooke. Trevor Noah was born a crime. So here's how we'll break down the video. First, I'll give meaning to the title, just in case you don't know already. Secondly, we'll get into his mother and father's ethnicity, because I think that plays a huge part in his child rearing. Thirdly, we'll get into Trevor Noah's identity and how you see that when you're reading the book. And finally, we'll talk about how he was dabbling in the ghetto life. Shout out to Rick James. The year is 1984, and South Africa is currently under apartheid, basically a policy that functions on the segregation of people based on their race. So wait, hold on. Y'all mean to tell me that South Africa was doing this after the civil rights and Jim Crow in the US? I wonder where they got all this stuff from. I wonder where they got this model from. So what did this apartheid mean for blacks and whites in South Africa? It meant that a person who was congregating with, befriending, or having sexual relations with a person of another race shall be guilty of an offense and liable on conviction for imprisonment for a period not exceeding 5 years. This excerpt was basically taken from the Immorality Act. So basically you couldn't add any milk to your coffee. They were not with the racial mixture. And you see throughout this book that the apartheid began to contextualize the lives of the haves and the have-nots. And we also see that the apartheid was basically designed to keep blacks under control in South Africa. Yes, they were gangster with their policy. And there was no cover-up saying that we're separate but equal. No. White folks birthed that system out of their hatred for black folk. Keep in mind that the system in itself is illogical. Trevor Noah mentions how the Chinese were labeled as black in South Africa simply because there weren't enough Chinese there to classify them in a certain group. So we'll just label them black. But get this, Trevor also mentions that the Japanese were labeled white simply because South Africa wanted to keep their affiliations with the Japanese as strong as possible. They were literally trading white privilege for Japanese vehicles. I mean, that's basically what was going on. Now, obviously, there were some people who got with other races. And some folks did like a little bit of milk in that coffee. And some even had a baby. But before we get into Trevor's life, let me touch on the ethnicity of his mom and his pops. Now, I'm going to do my best not to butcher these tribal names, so y'all don't kill me. Among the Zulu, Xhosa, Twanza, Sotho, Venda, Ndebele, Zonga, Pedi, and others, Trevor's mother, Patricia Noah, was part of the Xhosa tribe, which is basically the tribe that pride themselves on being thinkers. And guess who else was from the Xhosa tribe? Nelson Mandela. Now, Trevor's father, Robert, was German and Swiss. Now, unfortunately, Trevor's father didn't spend too much time in his life growing up, so we'll just stick to his mother's child rearing. With regards to these tribes, what's interesting to note is that during the apartheid, the South African government basically dished out certain resources to certain tribes, which was their way of saying, let's not fight these black tribes, let's have them fight themselves over these little pennies and crumbs that we're giving them. Look, now Mama Noah was well aware of this manipulation now, but she raised Trevor as best as she could. And aside from the commonalities that a lot of black readers would identify with regards to Mama Noah's child rearing, such as attending church by any means necessary, teaching your kids that you are not their friend, you are their parent, and getting the fear of God put into you if you disobey, talk back, or ignore your mama. When I say getting the fear of God put in you, I mean getting a whooping, getting beat. Young Trevor was not exempt from any of this, but what did strike me as the biggest takeaway was when his mother told him this. "I know you see me as some crazy old bitch nagging at you," she said, "but you forget the reason I ride you so hard and give you so much shit is because I love you. Everything I've ever done, I've done from a place of love. If I don't punish you, the world will punish you even worse. The world doesn't love you. If the police get you, the police don't love you. When I beat you, I'm trying to save you. When they beat you, they're trying to kill you." Wow. The world doesn't love you. Okay, video done. I'm over. What else can I say? I'm done. I'm just kidding. We still got some time left. Did y'all catch those haymakers that Mama Noah was dropping? First of all, she recognizes that raising a black boy is significantly different from raising any other type of child in this world. She understands who the apartheid targets, where it came from, and most of all, how it works. Also in the message, she's reaffirming her love and protection that she's been giving to Trevor since day one. Side note, you know what her message reminded me of? This. You ever seen this picture? This was a photo taken during the Ferguson riots after the verdict was released saying that Officer Darren Wilson was not indicted for shooting and killing the young black male Michael Brown. The city is on fire, and here you see this young boy in the picture trying to go join the chaos, but right in the nick of time, his mama yokes him up by the collar, grabs him, and is like, you are not going out there to get yourself killed. She had the same mentality that Mama Noah had. Those tanks, grenades, guns, tear gas, they weren't for training, they were there to take you out. One of the overarching situations that I noticed Trevor facing in his childhood was basically what it meant to be biracial while identifying as black. Even when he finished high school and started dabbling in the hood life, real gangsters in that hood knew that he was piecing his life together, trying to get by, and above all else, he could leave the hood. I mean, this said a lot. And one of the reasons why I like reading the chapter of his hustle in Alexandria, because it reveals the mentality of the hood community. Now, I'm being objective here, but this is how it goes. Stealing ain't stealing if you sell whatever you took to feed your family. Also, if you lived there, you were basically family. And most of all, ain't no leaving Alexandria when you want it, because we all we got. I'll let you read up on the rest of those chapters yourselves. Now, once you read through the stories and events of his childhood, you'll see how Trevor discovered life as a black boy in South Africa, and ultimately how he was able to reflect on those experiences that made him into the man that he is today. This has been the Black Curriculum.